To begin making our platformer, the first thing we need to do is click on New Project. And we're going to leave all the settings as default settings for now. And I'm just going to write the word platformer as the name of my project and go create. Alright, in Construct 3 we have three basic menus. We've got our properties menu over here, and that's contextual. So that will change based on what you're interacting with in your game. We have this main section, and this is where we do all our editing of our layouts, so editing the actual look of the game, and it's also where we do all our coding for the game. On the right hand side, this is our project window. At the moment you can see that we've got layouts and layout 1, which is our first level of our game. And then we have event sheets. Event sheets are our coding objects for the game. And then down here we have our layers, which allow us to organize our layout a little bit more. So to get started with our platformer game, I'm going to come over to my layout, right click, and go Insert New Object. From here, there's a whole heap of different plugins I can use to create a new object. But the first thing I'm going to create is a tiled background. Now, the easiest way to do this is actually by typing it into the search menu. Alternatively, you can scroll down until you find tiled background, which should be under General and then tiled background. But again, once you've used a few of these, you'll get to know the name of them, and it's just much easier typing them in. So I'm going to go Tile Background, Insert, and now I'm going to click anywhere inside my layout. So I'll just click here for starters, and we're going to resize this because currently it's really big. So if you come up to this little resize option and click it, it'll allow you to enter how many pixels you want it to be in height and width. We're going to go 32 by 32 because that's kind of the default for the grid that we're using, and press OK. Now I can zoom in by either pinching to zoom or using my mouse wheel, or you can use this zoom in and zoom out, or alternatively on your keyboard if you press Control and minus or Control and plus, that'll allow you to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in a long way just so I have a better view of everything. And I'm going to come over to this line tool, and I'm going to create my first background. On the thickness, I'm going to set that right down to 1, and I'm going to choose a black line. Okay, I'm going to come up to the top right hand corner, down to the bottom right, and across to the bottom left. So this is going to act as the border of my tiled background. Come over to the paint bucket. I'm going to make my background green, but you can go any color. It doesn't really matter what color you choose for your background. And I'll make it relatively light. And that's my background. The reason why I only used a border on two sides is that this is going to be tiled. So this is going to be repeated the whole way across the screen. And if I had 4 borders here, I'm going to end up with 2 borders on each side, and it's going to look a little bit funny. So I only put borders on one side. Doesn't matter which 2 sides you use, as long as you just fill 2 sides. And I'm going to close that. And now we can see that this is going to repeat itself as I drag this out. What I'm going to do is move this right to the top left hand corner and drag it down right to the bottom right hand corner. Cool. So that's now my background. It's the first step of my project. Next thing I'm going to do is lock this. So it gets really tricky when you've got, say, I don't know, a whole bunch of enemies, a whole bunch of platforms, and then you've got your background as well, and trying to select them becomes tricky. So we're going to lock this so that way I can't interact with it anymore. I come over to right click and go to lock, and then lock selection. So now I can't accidentally click on it. If you ever need to unlock it because you want to change the color or whatever, you can come over to right click, lock, and then unlock all, or unlock all on this layer. Great, so that's looking fine. I'm going to now add my first platform to the game. So I'm going to right click again, insert new object, and I'm going to create another tiled background. So this isn't going to be a background, but I still want to use this tiled background object. The reason for that is I don't want to have to create lots of different sizes of my platforms. I just want to create the one platform and be able to use it over and over again. So that's a great thing about using this tiled background. If you have an object that can just repeat lots of times. So I'm going to go over to resize, and I'm going to make it the same size as before, which was 32 pixels by 32 pixels. Press OK, zoom right in, and we're going to do the exact same process. So I'm going to grab my line tool, go right down to black, draw out from bottom left to bottom right to top right, and then I'm going to fill it in. So come over to the paint bucket. I'm not going to make it the same color as my background because it won't really stand out. Instead, I'm just going to choose a gray. So that's going to be the color of my platforms. They're all dark gray. Once you've done that, hit the close button, and then you can drag it out so it's the same size as everything else on the screen. So I'm going to zoom in, make this be the same size as these guys, pull them out, and great. That's my first platform. So when I zoom out, I have a platform that I can start on. Might move it over here a little bit more. Awesome. Next thing we need to do is create our first hero, our first character in our game. So again, we're going to add something to our layout. So we right click and go insert new object. And this object is going to be a sprite. So sprites are pretty much everything in the game that you can interact with. So I'm going to, or visually interact with. I'm going to go sprite, put it down here, and again, resize to 32 by 32. And my character is going to be super simple. It's just going to be a bright white box. That's my player. Cool. All right, so we've done the first part of our game. We've got our first platform in there. We've got a background. We've got our player. If we want to see how our game works now, we just come over to this play button. It's going to open up a new window, and it'll let us play our game. But as you can see, I can't actually do anything with my game. Nothing's happening because I haven't added any behaviors or any anything to tell the game that this is a platform and this is a character and that's my background. So that's the first thing we need to do. We have to add behaviors to our game. The great thing about using a game engine is that these are already built in for you. So I'm going to start with my hero, and I'm going to click on my hero. Notice over in the properties that when you select something, it changes this properties menu. So I'm going to stop selecting that and go back to my layout. And we can see these are all the properties for my layout. When I click on the hero, it gives me the properties for just that hero, which is great because I'm going to add some behaviors to this hero. So I'm going to click on this word behaviors, add a new behavior, and this behavior is going to be a platformer. So what that means is that Construct has already built in all the code that's required, or most of the code that's required, to make this guy into a platformer. So when we think about a platformer game such as Mario, one of the main characteristics of that game is that it's always going to be falling until it's touching a platform. So with Mario, if I jump up, I'm not going to stay in space. Instead, Mario is going to land back down onto the platform. Likewise, if I want Mario to go right or left, he's going to be able to move left and right. So when I press play, we can see, okay, interesting. When I press play, there's certainly gravity there, but the hero, our hero character, that sprite that we just added, doesn't realize that this is actually a platform. So we need to add something to this platform to allow this sprite to interact with it. Basically, what we want to do is have this guy be able to stay put on this platform. So what we want to do is click on the platform, add a behavior, and we want to add a new behavior that is solid. So if I just type in solid, and it has a bit of a description down here. Make the object impassable so other objects cannot move or fall through it. Okay, sounds great. I'm going to add that. So this should now be impassable. So this guy should not be able to move through it. Okay, so it's starting to look like an actual platformer now. I can jump. I have a platform down there, which seems to work. Great. Next thing that all platformers have are multiple platforms, right? It's a pretty boring game if you just start with one platform. So what I'm going to do is not duplicate it. So you don't want to go to right-click and clone. We'll get into that further as to why that doesn't work. But what you do need to do is go to copy and right-click and paste. Cool. So I have one platform, two platforms, and because they're tile maps, I can make them really big or really small. So there's one platform, right click, copy, right click, paste, and that'll give me another platform. Or if you want to be a little bit quicker by it, just select it, and then you can use keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Control-C and Control-V. And that allows me to really rapidly add out these. The other shortcut that you can use is by clicking on the platform. If I hold the Control key, I can then just drag out lots and lots and lots of copies of that. Hit play, and now you should have the basics of a platformer.